How are you?
I am fine, thank you. Let's Thank you so much for this interview and your time.
You're welcome.
And now allow me to present to our respected audience a truly remarkable athlete, a warrior of the ring, and a shining example of dedication, resilience, and excellence. It is my great honor to introduce Yolanda Schmidt, a world-class Muay Thai fighter whose journey through combat sport is nothing short of inspiring. Ranked among the elite as a WBC top contender, number 3 in the world, Yolanda has carved her name into the global fight scene with skill, heart, and an unwavering determination. And based in Sydney, Australia, she continues to train, evolve, and inspire the next generation of fighters. Beyond her achievements in the ring, Yolanda embodies discipline, passion, and the true spirit of martial arts, const- uh, constantly pushing limits and striving for greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a fighter, a champion, and a true force in Muay Thai, Yolanda Schmidt.
Thanks for having me.
And you are a true warrior of the ring. Your career shows incredible consistency and heart. You have faced challenges that most fighters never experience. Your discipline is deeply inspiring. Your legacy already speaks for itself. Looking back at your 15 professional fights, how would you define your Springbok legacy?
Well, I guess my legacy is definitely being part of the fighters who have paved the way for future females in the sport. There are a lot of females now who have much more opportunities and have opportunities to fight at some of the major stadiums. So I would say that that is part of my legacy, working hard, facing opponents on short notice, often far more experienced than I, saying constant yes to fights regardless, and just showing the world that women actually belong in this sport.
You have reached heights that many only dream about. Becoming a world champion multiple times is extraordinary. Your journey reflects true dedication. You have earned every moment of success. Your story motivates fighters worldwide. Which of your three world titles feels the most earned now that you have perspective?
Well, I guess it would be the one where I ruptured my hamstring. It was in the first exchange in the fight, within the first 10 seconds when I threw a jab. As I went for the cross, my opponent push kicked my front leg and I fell to the ground and I knew straight away that something was seriously wrong. But I had worked so hard to get to that point that I got up and I continued. I continued to work. I bit down on my mouth guard, and between rounds, my corner asked me if I wanted to throw in the towel. And I said, definitely not. Definitely not. I didn't work this hard to get only this far. And so we changed the game plan, and I went on to win by knockout in the second round. After that fight, I put on a very brave face to walk out for the medal ceremony, and no one would have known that anything was wrong. That night, I flew home to Sydney, and the very next day, I was at the specialist, and within a couple of days, I was on the operating table. I had ruptured the hamstring completely off of the bone, and I had to reattach it with 3 pins. And so The surgeons had told me I would never return, but I gave up my spot on the national team because after winning gold, you would then go off and represent at another World Games opportunity, but I wasn't able to. And you know what? Knowing that even after that fight, I came back, that's probably the one that I'm proudest of, because anyone else that I can think of would have quit in that moment, and I refused to quit.
Your sacrifices build your greatness. Fans see the victories, but not always the struggles. Your journey required incredible resilience. You have paid a price for success that makes your story even more powerful. What was the most significant sacrifice you made that fans never saw?
I guess essentially with any athlete, they don't often see that we sacrifice everything. Everything is sacrificed. We sacrifice our family, we sacrifice our friends, because we give up all almost social moments when your friends are out partying or enjoying things, and they don't really understand what it takes to be the best, and what it takes to be an athlete in a sport where there is no off season. And so I always felt like I had to be taking every single moment to try and explain to people why I wasn't able to attend certain things, but I refused to not take those opportunities that came my way. And this meant saying yes to fights at last notice. It meant fighting up in weight classes. It meant missing big moments with family and friends. But it was a conscious choice. And if I had to choose again, I would still choose that, because your athletic career isn't as long lived as your relationships with your friends and family. And those closest to you will understand this. And sometimes your fans will also learn or get to know you on a different level, and they'll start understanding and seeing you as a person. But I guess it depends how much you actually show on social media, not just the highlights.
You have grown not only as a fighter, but as a person. Your journey reflects transformation. Every fight shaped who are you today. Your evolution is inspiring. You represent more than just sport. How has your identity evolved from your pro debut to your retirement match?
Well, firstly, I didn't know my retirement match was going to be my retirement match, but at the start of my career, I was trying to prove that I belonged as a female in a male dominated sport. And I said yes to every opportunity to build my identity as a resilient athlete with grit. And I structured that around my training with early morning and late nights. And retirement was completely different. It was a very different challenge. You know, identity as an athlete, you are pushing yourself to show the world, one, that you belong there, two, that you're strong, three, that you're worthy of all the challenges that are given to you and opponents that are presented to you, as well as opportunities that are presented to you. Retirement, that was different, and I didn't really know who I was without Muay Thai. I lost my routine, I lost my sense of belonging, sense of self. It just was a really emotional time, going from training 20 hours a week to not having a routine, not being forced to, and I say this lightly, I don't mean that I was forced to train, I just mean that I didn't take a day and say, oh, I'm feeling a little bit tired today, I won't go to training. But when you've retired, there isn't that goal that you're working towards. And so everything changes. You don't have that, I have to be doing this because my opponent will be doing this. Then life changes, your schedule changes. You don't need to be training these late night hours anymore, and you can choose to do other things. However, for quite a while, my identity really struggled. I really didn't know who I was without having the goal of fighting and training specifically for that goal. I finally come to terms with it, and it's taken me a long time, but it forced me to grow. And now I'm, I guess, more on the back end where I've had to rediscover who I was and who I am. And now I contribute to sport in a different way. And this is through advocacy of females in the sport, female development, and then promoting clean sport. So I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm still the same person at the core. I've just found a new way to show up.
You are a great fighter. Great fighters are defined by great rivals. You have faced elite competition. Those battles shaped your greatness. Every challenge made you stronger. Your opponents helped build your legacy. Who was the rival that truly pushed you to become the best version of yourself?
I've had quite a few amazing opponents, and those amazing opponents were the ones that were 3, 4, 5, 6 times more experienced than I. But I would say Iman Barlow was the person I looked up to as an idol in the sport when I started. By the time I faced her, she had 104 fights, and I was only on 30 something. So I would say she's really the person that I would say it was my biggest rival, because, you know, they are your rival when your idol becomes your rival. And we fought in Melbourne. It was absolutely fantastic. I wasn't sure how it would go, but just being able to share the ring with her was next to none. I ensured that I worked really hard, and I remember just thinking to myself that I belong here. I really do belong here. And I pushed hard, and I made sure that she would remember my name afterwards. The fight went her way, but I enjoyed every moment in there. And then later in my career, we both fought at the World Games in Birmingham, different weight categories. So we were able to cheer each other on. And I would say I've made a lifelong friend, even though we started out as rivals.
Absolutely. 100%. These are big fights. Your fighting style is truly unique. You have developed weapons that set you apart. Your technique evolved beautifully over time. You always adapted at the highest level. That's what makes champions special. What was your most dangerous weapon in the ring, and how did it change over time?
I guess early in my career, my most dangerous weapon would have been my aggression and my heart. I never gave up, and I got stronger as the fight went on. Round by round, you saw me strengthen. I was always the shorter athlete, and so I had to fight forward. I couldn't be somebody who was on the back foot, because otherwise I wouldn't be in range of achieving the strikes that I wanted to. But as I became more comfortable with being that forward fighter, I was known for my strong right hand and my elbows. I've cut many women with my elbows, and I have won 17 of my fights by knockout or technical knockout. And I guess I really just trusted to listen to my corner, and whatever they said to me, I did. It was, 51 fights into my career, and I just kept pushing forward. I guess the real true weapon is the fact that I never gave up. I went in there with a job to do and did it to the best of my ability, and whoever was the better one on the day is the one who had their hand raised.
You carry pride from more than one nation. Representing countries is a huge honor. You have inspired people across continents. Your identity is global. That makes your journey even more powerful. How did it feel to represent both South Africa and Australia on the world stage?
Well, that's actually something I'm really proud of. Although it happened by accident, as I represented South Africa in the Irish Dance World Championships. So I was the dancer for South Africa. And I really didn't start training Muay Thai until I moved to Australia. But the reason I ended up competing for both Australia and for South Africa is because when I fought at the Muay Thai Angels tournament, they wouldn't let me compete for Australia because I wasn't yet an Australian citizen. And so my passport still said South Africa. And so I had to represent as a South African athlete, which was quite strange because I'd represented Australia throughout my entire career. It was with them that I built my name and the opportunities that they allowed me to compete internationally. But it was really amazing to be able to represent from my home country with my South African flag, and that allowed me to build more connections with the gyms and Muay Thai athletes in South Africa at the same time. So I felt like when I was competing at the Muay Thai World Angels, I had the support from two countries. I mean, that's just something that really stood out for me, that what athlete can actually say that?
Your career is something truly special. You have built a legacy few can match. Every step had meaning. Your journey is full of unforgettable moments. Some things are simply priceless. What is the one thing about your career you wouldn't change for anything?
I think the most important thing here is that I never said no to any opportunity. So the fact that I said yes to taking on Iman Barlow when I knew that she had 104 fights behind her, taking on Chomini, taking on Namchan, all of these athletes who were leaps and bounds ahead of me and my progression, I would say saying yes to those opportunities is something I wouldn't change. Taking on those fights on short notice and stepping in against those more experienced opponents is what shaped me. It gave me the chance to travel the world. It allowed me to compete in places such as China, Sweden, America, all over Thailand. It's just been an absolutely amazing experience to be able to build those lifelong connections with people from around the world. I've held seminars in New Zealand, all over Australia, in South Africa, and without saying yes to those opportunities when the fights came up, I mightn't have had the opportunity to meet those amazing people and have more of those great experiences.
You have represented the sport at the highest level. Being part of IFMA is a major achievement. You carried responsibility with pride. You stood for something bigger than yourself. That's true greatness. What was your proudest moment as an IFMA representative?
I would say my proudest moment was when I represented alongside Lee Fook at the Asian Muay Thai Championships. This was the first time that Australia was invited to represent at the Asian Muay Thai Championships. And so it was a fantastic opportunity. One. Two, I took that on 1 week notice. Three, I won gold. Four, I was awarded female athlete of the tournament. I also had the honor of reading the athlete oath at the opening ceremony. So all these amazing experiences in one, plus being able to compete in Macau, which is like the Asian version of Las Vegas. It was absolutely breathtaking. So I would say, regardless of winning gold for Australia, it was an experience beyond. We built friendships. It was just something bigger than just my own performance. I thoroughly enjoyed being at that tournament. Everything was just spectacular, and so many memories came from that.
Your story is very interesting. You have always been a smart fighter. Strategy played a huge role in your success. Your team clearly trusted your instincts. You brought creativity into the ring. That's what separates elite fighters. You're really elite fighter. What was the most creative game plan you and your coaches ever executed?
I would say that my coaching team has always been phenomenal. They they know how to coach me, and I listen really well. The most creative game plan, I guess, would have been when I was preparing for the semi-final and the final of the World Muay Thai Angels, because I knew that both fights would be in the same night, and looking at who else was left in that tournament, we did our own interpretation of who we thought would win the other semi-final. So I took on Nat Morgan from USA, and Chomini and Namtan were in the other semi-final. So we anticipated that Chomini would take the win, which she did. And so in my preparation in the camp leading up to the semi and the finals, we had to train to prepare for Nat Morgan and train to prepare for Chomini, which are two completely different fight styles. And so it was quite interesting because I almost needed to take one hat off and then train a certain way. And then halfway through our session, we would change hats, and then I'd be training for the other fight. So it was two different fight styles in the same camp. I guess not just creative, but interesting to fight two different ways in the same fight camp. And, it's quite challenging, but we thoroughly enjoyed the challenge.
Your preparation has always been elite. Championship camps define great fighters. You have pushed your limits every day. Discipline was your foundation. Your work ethic is undeniable. What did a typical championship camp day look like at your peak?
I would say, are we looking more at fight week or in the middle of our fight camp? Fight week, I say at this stage, it would be waking up at 4:20 in the morning and doing my cardio, whether that be my longer runs or my sprints. I made sure that I was doing my sprints in the entire lead up of any fight camp. So in fight week, it's 10-second sprints with 20 seconds off to prepare the body for the rapid fire in a fight. After that, I would head to my day job, working 7 to 4. And then from then, I would rush off to teach some Muay Thai classes and then jump straight into training my own Muay Thai 2 to 3 times in that week as well. Between the sprints and the longer runs for cardio, I also did my strength training. The strength training was focusing a little bit more on explosive movements as opposed to strength. So it was more power, speed and strength together. Lighter sessions near the end, but my biggest session would be that Wednesday before, where I was completely smashed within class, and I had the most amazing teammates. And by amazing, I mean that they killed me. They pushed me really hard. They threw me around like a rag doll, and they made me work so much. But without that, come fight day, I wouldn't have been as prepared as I was.
Your technique is incredibly refined. Mastery takes years of dedication. You have built your skills step by step, day by day, camp by camp. Nothing came easy. That's why your level is so high. Which technical skill was the hardest for you to master?
I think coming from a dance background, firstly, just coming into Muay Thai where your foot needs to be quite relaxed, that in its own was quite challenging. Coming from a dance background, the moment your foot leaves the floor, it naturally points. We've trained ourselves to do that. So coming into Muay Thai and getting myself to relax that foot, that was quite challenging. But once I mastered that, I would say the one skill that took me the longest to really master was a leg kick. Body kick, head kick, no problem, but changing to go to a leg kick, the technique is just so different. You really have to relax the hip, you have to drop everything into that movement, and you really need to melt your supporting leg. And for me, it took a long time of repetition, 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 and just one day the penny dropped and I had a really great leg kick. So when I'm teaching Muay Thai, I often tell the ladies in my classes that some skills will take longer than others to master, and one day the penny will drop and you'll just get it. And I'd say that's probably the hardest one.
You do cool tricks. You did a great job. Well done. Your conditioning has always been impressive. You never looked right in the ring. Your endurance set you apart. You pushed beyond the limits. That's the mark of a champion. Tell me please about your conditioning program. What was the secret sauce of your conditioning program?
I would say conditioning is got to do with consistency and discipline. I showed up to every session, regardless of whether it was one I was doing independently or one with my coaches. I never skipped the work, especially with the sprints leading out to 4 weeks out. You're doing 1 minute sprints, and then as your fight camp gets closer to fight day, you are doing shorter sprints with rest in between. But I'd say doing those sprints, your coach is not always there to encourage you to do the work. And I would say the secret here is to ensure that you're working just as hard when your coaches are not watching as you do when your coaches are watching. So I'd say that I showed up. I woke up at 4 a.m. I did my sprints. I never skipped them, because if you do skip them, you can see straight away who hasn't done their sprinting leading up to a fight because they're gassing out. Whereas with me, every round I got stronger and stronger, and I didn't need to gas out. I just pushed through.
I'm sure you are mentally strong. Your mental game is just as strong as your physical one. Focus is everything in Muay Thai. You have shown incredible composure. Your discipline stands out. That's what builds champions, real great champions. What role did shadow boxing play in your mental preparation?
You know, shadow boxing is often looked at as not important. Shadow boxing is so important. And when I realized the importance of shadow boxing, I felt that it helped me a lot. It's a moment where I was able to visualize someone in front of me and actually visualize how these movements would play out. The moment you're starting to do this with your shadow boxing, it's benefiting you. So I would run through different scenarios. I'd picture my opponent in front of me. I'd rehearse the techniques we've been training throughout the fight camp. On fight day specifically, this is where I was seeing this, but you know, throughout fight camp as well, so that when I stepped into the ring, nothing felt new. I'd already visualized it. I'd already seen myself landing these techniques. So combining visualization with my shadow boxing, and shadow boxing the way you would actually fight is the right way to do it, because what you practice is what will come through when you're in that fight or flight moment in the ring.
Injuries can break us. It's terrible for sportsmen. You are shown incredible toughness. Injuries are part of every fighter's journey. But you kept going. Your resilience is inspiring. You never gave up your position. How did you deal with injuries while staying active in the rankings?
Well, this is quite a hard question to answer because early on in my career, I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to rest and allow those little injuries to heal because I saw rest as being lazy. And because in Muay Thai there isn't really enough season, I found it hard to manage the injuries. It took a really long time for me to realize that you do need to stop and allow yourself to heal. But in saying that, I've never jumped into a ring without some type of injury, and I've never had a fight camp without some type of injury. I remember we were preparing for, it might have been a fight in Melbourne, and I had to work closely with my medical professionals because I tore my knee in the fight camp. And it was really challenging because we didn't want to cancel the fight. I've never pulled out of a fight. I've never said no to a fight. And we didn't want to start doing that then. And so we adapted my training. I sat on the side of the ring and I was still hitting pads. Even though I wasn't able to do my running sprints, I jumped on the bicycle. I still did sprinting on a spin bike. I hit the pads on the side of the ring and I got involved as much as I could with what I had. I had moments where I tore a shoulder and I had cortisone injections. It's just about, well, then there are 7 other weapons that we can use in Muay Thai. It's not like boxing where you're only using your hands. We've got elbows, knees, push kicks, you name it. And I would say it's about just listening to your medical professionals and listening to your body. Later on in my career, I started listening to my body a little bit more, and I started really understanding the the reason that we've got these medical professionals in our corner, I guess. And so when I did my hamstring, that surgery, I think that's when I realized that I needed to focus on managing those rehab process so that I could come back to the ring, especially because the surgeon said I would never return. And so that was where I guess was the deciding point for me to really take a step back and do all those silly little physio exercises that we often get given and feel pointless, but they are the ones that work. So making sure that we're listening to those medical professionals, but making sure the medical professionals we have in our corner are sports specific so that they can understand that where we're coming from. And I'd say then I started to see progress, and it's about making sure that you know the longevity of your career as an athlete is really important. If you don't manage these little injuries along the way, you'll end up like me where your career is cut short and you have to retire due to an injury. And so I would say that's my advice.
This is inspiring story. Your story inspire many sportsmen in the world. You have balanced strengths and technique beautifully. Not every fighter can do that. Your style always looked fluid. You combined power with elegance. That's rare to see. How did you balance strength training with the flow of Muay Thai?
Well, I would say I've been lifting weights for over 25 years, but most amateurs get this wrong because lifting weights for sport specific strength and power is very different to just lifting weights in a gym. And so I would say that I got it right because I started working with a sports specific strength and conditioning coach that understood the power and the dynamics required in Muay Thai specifically. My trainers had either come out to the Muay Thai gyms to see what is involved, they understood the sport, they either trained themselves. And so having somebody who's able to show you the right movements, because you can lift weights all you want, but if you're not lifting them in the proper phases throughout your fight camp, you are being counterproductive. So 4 weeks out from a fight camp, from a fight, we might be doing much heavier lifting, but closer to a fight, you won't be lifting as heavy. And so if you're untrained in understanding the dynamics, then that's when you're going to get it wrong. I was very fortunate that I had the coaches that I did, some phenomenal coaches who were able to ensure that looking at my programming within fights and how to adjust how heavy I was going, how explosive I was moving, what types of movements I was doing at which phase in my fight camp, that allowed me to be successful.
Your clinch game has always been strong. It's one of the hardest aspects of Muay Thai. You showed control and intelligence. You dominated in close range. That takes years to master. How did your clinch game evolve over the years?
At the start of my career, I hated clinch. By the end of my career, I loved the clinch and I would do anything I could to be in the clinch. I thought at the start that you needed to be the strongest person in the exchange, in the clinch, in order to do well. And as a shorter fighter, that really didn't play to my advantage. And once I started to learn the techniques properly, I could take on even a 6 foot man with my clinch and be able to out clinch him because I understood technique over strength. That's where everything changed, and I began to really find what works for me. Specifically, as I mentioned, as a shorter fighter, there's certain techniques that work really well for me, where I'm able to get myself into positions that benefit me and allow for the scoring. So I grew to love the clinching. And I remember one fight that I almost spent 15 minutes just clinching. And that's a different level of fitness and control. But it became a space where I could really impose my game and fight my fight.
You have always been a thinking fighter. Studying opponents is key at your level. You prepared with precision. You left nothing to chance. That's elite mentality. How did you analyze video of your opponents back then?
Surprisingly, I've never analyzed any of my 51 opponents. I felt that it wasn't my job to do this. I trusted that my trainers had done that analysis and had planned my training based on that. My trainer's job was to give me a game plan, and my job was to train and execute that game plan. And looking back on my career, I don't know if things would be any different had I chosen to analyze the films. But because of the type of person I am, I felt that if I had analyzed footage, that I might have started focusing too much on what my opponent was doing instead of focusing on what I should be doing or what my training should be. My trainers often said to me when I would get in the ring that I should fight my fight. So analyzing them isn't really going to benefit me. So long as my trainers have pushed me in the right direction with my fight game and my strategy for the fight preparation, then that's what we would do. I really trusted my team, and it allowed me to be more mentally clear leading up to the fights and really work on what I had to work on.
You are very speed. Your speed has always been impressive. Many fighters lose it over time, but you stayed sharp. Your timing remained elite. That's very hard to maintain. How did you maintain your speed as you moved through different stages of your career?
I would say that it came down to combining my structured training with speed and reaction drills. So we incorporated a lot of reaction drills and timing drills, reacting to stimulus such as sound, touch, or visual, and making sure that you were able to adapt that way allowed me to keep refining that, because it is something that if you don't train, you will lose. And so I allowed my strength and conditioning to mirror my Muay Thai as well in that sense. So in a strength training session, I might be doing a shot put push against the wall using a beanbag, and that's the same process I would be doing as throwing a punch, but being able to do it quite fast. Also using resistance bands to be able to do them, and then the moment I don't have those resistance bands, I'm punching a lot faster. So ensuring that all those energy systems in the body are being trained constantly and at the right times, the right phases through your fight camp is really important to ensure that we're able to actually execute the movements with speed and precision.
Discipline in our sport, it's all. You have shown incredible discipline and talent. Long camps are mentally tough. Not everyone can handle them. You stayed focused throughout. That's what champions do. How did you stay focused during the long, monotonous weeks of a 10-week camp?
Well, I actually never had the luxury of a 10-week camp. Most of my fight camps were maximum 4 weeks, sometimes 2 weeks, and in some cases, 2 days. And so I really never had the opportunity to be able to do that and count on all of that. But in my 4-week camps, I kept myself accountable by journaling. I would journal one thing that I did well in that particular session, one thing I might need to work on, and then I would date and time specifically when I'd have an opportunity to reattempt that skill or refine that skill, work on it a little bit more. I also used to use positive reinforcement during my fight camps. I would record myself a little message, and the message would be reminding me of my strengths, some weapons or techniques that I perform really well, or it could have been linking to specific techniques I was training within that fight camp. And I would play that to myself every morning on the way to work. And I felt that hearing your own voice is quite impactful. It's more impactful than hearing somebody else tell you all of these things. And so it kept me focused and confident, even with the short, intense camps.
This interview will be useful for future sportsmen because psychology is, in my opinion, psychology is 15 or more % of success. Your mental strength is undeniable. High stakes fights require total control. You always looked composed. You trusted yourself fully. That's elite mindset. How did you silence the inner critic before stepping into a high-stakes fight?
Well, I walked into every fight as if it was a title fight. I felt that if I told myself it was a high-stakes fight, that I would fight like it's a high-stakes fight. I was always extremely nervous beforehand, but I didn't try and silence that. My first strength and conditioning coach used to tell me that I need to use it and redirect it because nerves is a signal that this is important. It means something to me. So the recordings I mentioned before, I would listen to those and that would just keep me focused. I would visualize exactly what I was hearing myself tell myself, executing those particular strikes. But I did work with a mind coach, Josh Manuel from Fight Mindset, and he helped me develop many tools, specifically that journaling tool. He helped me to do that. He helped me to start recording myself with those notes. And so we would always do a session in fight week. Sometimes it was a really important one, such as the World Muay Thai Angels. That one I had 2 sessions with him in fight week. So I would say having a mindset coach, but sport-specific mindset coach, can be really beneficial. I do recall once working with Josh where we visualized what I wanted to do in a particular fight. It was for the Taipei Stadium belt. in Thailand. It was a big fight, fighting a Thai woman on Thai soil for the stadium belt was big. And I remember winning that fight exactly how we visualized it during our sessions. We had visualized and I had verbalized in those sessions that I was going to end that fight and win via a body shot knockout, which I guess that's probably the strangest thing to envision because it's not as common as an elbow or a punch or a hook to the face or a head kick, yet a body shot is one of my favorite weapons. And so visualizing that and actually seeing it happen showed me the benefits of working with a mindset coach. And I guess, you know, that process gave me confidence to make sure that I keep focusing on that inner voice we were talking about before and the positive self-talk, because that's really important. What we tell ourselves, we believe.
I know many Ukrainian athletes who had great talent but had fear. Unfortunately, fear broke them. You have faced real danger in your career. Fear is part of fighting, but you never let it control you. You show true courage that defines a fighter. How did you handle the fear of losing or getting injured?
I guess I wouldn't really call it fear, but it would be a sense of pressure and responsibility. And I think it was worse earlier on in my career where I felt the pressure came from not wanting to disappoint the people around me, not wanting to disappoint my coaches if I had lost or disappoint my fans or my friends or family. But over time, I realized that the people who really support me would support me regardless of whether I won or I lost or I drew. And that shifted my mindset a little bit. And maybe too late in my career, I would have liked my mind to have changed earlier on so that I didn't have that sense of pressure, of responsibility of winning. And, you know, the confidence of knowing I was getting up doing those 420 sessions, I was doing my sprints, I was at training every night when my trainer wasn't there. I built that confidence, but only later on in my fight career where I didn't allow that pressure to have a voice in my head. And I was really not dealing with some kind of an injury. And so, if anything, I would encourage athletes to understand early on that the people around us care far less about the result of a fight. And this will allow you to shift that fear or pressure so that you're able to clearly focus on what you were doing. And then when you're ready, after your performance, win, loss, or draw, come back to improving and refining your skills.
You are the example of a real person. You reached the top of the sport. Staying there is even harder. You carried expectations, but you stayed grounded. That's rare. How did you stay grounded when you were at the top of the world rankings?
I guess for me, I stayed grounded because I knew that I had worked so hard to get where I was. The fact that I took every fight, short notice, someone's more experienced, anything. I took those challenges and I earned my place. I never really felt that I was given anything. I was felt that I worked really hard. And so I was quite reserved as an athlete. I feel I probably should have promoted myself a little bit more on social media, but I felt nervous that if I did, I might look a bit egotistical or up myself. And I really wanted the world to see me as a humble person because I let my performance speak for itself. But it is quite challenging because now looking back, maybe had I pushed more on social media, I would have had more people contact me for support or advice. But because I didn't do that, I may have missed that. But I was always really grateful for the role that social media, the fans, etc., have played in my journey. And it has allowed me to stay grounded because it doesn't matter who you are, you can achieve. And I wanted to be that tangible role model that wasn't far out of reach. I really wanted to come across like somebody who could be approached for advice. And that allowed me to just stay humble.
You have inspired many female fighters and, in my opinion, male fighters. Being a role model is not easy. You create that responsibility. You set an example that matters beyond sport. How did you deal with the pressure of being a role model for female fighters?
To be honest, I don't think I felt it as pressure. I saw it as a privilege to be part of a generation that is helping athletes, regardless female, male, grow in the sport, allowing more opportunities for building eyes on the sport so that future athletes will have more opportunities. If anything, I wish that more athletes had reached out for advice or help because I do want to be that role model. I do want to be that mentor to future athletes, regardless of male, female, youth. For me, it was more about leading through what I did, how I trained, and how I carried myself in the sport to practice what you preach. So, hoping that what people would see would become infectious, and the way that I held myself in the ring after a loss would be noted as sportsmanship, good sportsmanship, and therefore promote more sportsmanship within our field.
Every champion starts somewhere. The beginning is never easy. Doubts are natural, but you pushed through. That's what makes your story powerful. Uh, did you feel like you were doing the wrong thing? Why do I need it? Did you ever have imposter syndrome at the start of your career?
It's a good question, but no, not really. I was always very aware that every time I was in the ring, I was stepping in the ring with someone far more experienced than I. But I never really felt like I didn't belong there because if I had, I wouldn't have taken those fights. I was ready to take on that challenge and test myself. And from that, learn some lessons and figure out what I need to work on in my next fight camps. For me, it was more about stepping up, taking the challenge, and trusting that every experience I had would allow me to grow from those opportunities and potentially open more opportunities.
Your mindset has always been strong. Mental tools define champions. You developed inner strengths. You stayed focused under pressure. That's elite level. What was the most important mental tool in your arsenal? Maybe yoga.
I would say, I guess it was the self belief that I built through the preparation of the journaling and the voice messages. I would say the best mental tool is believing in yourself and taking control of that positive self talk. It's very easy for us to have negative self talk. That's natural, it just happens. But I feel like for me, it was the journaling, the visualization, the voice recordings that I made, and keeping my mindset focused. It wasn't just about thinking positively, but having the evidence through my preparation that I was ready. So knowing that I turned up to every training session, knowing that when that alarm went off, I would get up, knowing that regardless of who was watching, I was ready.
You have fought in many environments. Home, away. Not all of them are friendly. Some crowds are tough. but you handed it. That shows true professionalism. What was the most hostile environment you ever fought in?
I would say in Muay Thai, there's always a really strong sense of respect and culture. And so I wouldn't really describe any environment as hostile. But with that said, sometimes the environment itself can be quite challenging. For example, at IFMA, there are three rings going at the same time with many countries cheering on. And it's difficult to hear the bell and knowing when you should stop or shouldn't stop. But I've also experienced other outdoor fights where it was really difficult to hear my corner. Every time I fought in Thailand, I was fighting against a Thai opponent, and our Thais are very vocal, which is amazing, but you could hear them cheering your opponent on. And I would say I used that as, I guess, fuel to push me to prove to them that they should have been cheering me on. I do recall fighting someone in Melbourne, and she was from Melbourne. And so I could hear the crowd cheering for her. And I was new. It's probably only my 10th fight. And so I didn't really have a fan base in Melbourne. And I just recall hearing the crowd roar and yelling for my opponent. And I just listened to my opponent's corner a little bit more in that fight, as well as my own corner. And I really just had to block out any other distractions and stay focused on what I was trying to do. And I think that's sometimes really difficult for athletes to do, is to drain out all the external noise and just focus on your trainer's voice from the corner and do the job that you are there to do.
You have been through tough rounds, moments when the body wants to stop, but you kept going. That's real heart. That's what defines champions. What kept you going during the rounds where your body wanted to quit?
I cannot really say I had a moment where my body wanted to quit, because I'm such a determined person, and I'm the type of person that I'm all or nothing. Either you get everything or you get nothing. I won't do anything half-assed. And I guess I just needed to keep reminding myself of that. And so when I would walk into a ring, I knew that I had a job to do. I was here, I've arrived for my shift, and I'm now going to get it done. And so I never really had a moment where I was struggling to push through. And if I did, I would just ask my coach, what round are we in? And just know, okay, I've got one more round to go. Just keep pushing with the energy I've got. And because I trusted I'd done all of my cardio leading up, my fitness levels were there.
Great coaches leave a lasting impact. You have clearly had strong guidance. Advice can shape careers. You listen and learned. That's why you success. What was the best piece of mental advice a coach ever gave you?
I do remember my coach Andy telling me that it was like having a Ferrari in his garage. And at first I didn't know what he meant. And then he said that I was the Ferrari in the garage and it was ready to race. He used to tell me before a fight that I need to remember that you are YOLO. Remember that. And it's about backing yourself and fighting your own fight. He often would tell me, don't get drawn into fighting your opponent's fight style. You do you. And I think that just really stuck with me every time. He would just remind me that within the first round, we would do what we do and we'll make any adjustments between rounds. So I'd say, yeah, you are YOLO. Just remember that.
I love to listen music. Very love. What was your favorite workout song and why?
To be honest, in my 51 fights, I didn't have a specific walkout song. It was always asking my trainer what his favorite song at the moment was, or at the venue talking to the DJ and asking them what their favorite song was at the moment. I guess I just wanted whatever the walkout song was to get the crowd going and lift the energy in the crowd. I'd say, but the one that really stuck with me is I walked out to, what's the song's name? Guess Who's Back? It's not the name of the song, but it's Eminem's song. Guess Who's Back? Shady's back. So I came out singing Guess Who's Back? YOLO's back, because the surgeons had told me I wouldn't return. And then when I returned, that just felt like a very fitting song. I'm back. Guess who's back?
And last question. You have lived the life a true fighter. Now you can reflect and on everything. Your journey defines strengths. Your mindset is inspiring. You have earned your place in history. How you defined warrior spirit now that you are retired?
Well, for me, warrior spirit is about pushing to be the best version of yourself with what you've got. Every person out there is dished out a different set of challenges, different life experiences, but being the best version of yourself with what you've got is what it is. It's not just about fighting, it's about how you show up when things don't go according to plan, when things go wrong, how you deal with it, how you treat people around you. For me, retirement wasn't something I chose. I went through a really tough period when I had to have a forced retirement and I lost identity and routine, but it's that same mindset that got me through, of knowing that I'm here and I just have to deal with what I've got and be the best version of myself. So I'm still here, still contributing and still pushing for female participation in combat sport. But being a warrior doesn't stop when you leave the ring. It stops when you stop showing up.
Thank you so much for this incredible interview. It was truly an honor to hear your story, your mindset, and the journey behind everything you have achieved. You honestly, your strengths and your warrior spirit really stand out, and I'm sure our audience felt that as well. You didn't just share answers, you shared experience, emotion, and real inspiration. That's something people remember. We deeply appreciate your time, your openness, and the energy you brought into this conversation. Wishing you continued success, happiness, and new victories in every chapter ahead, both inside and outside the ring. Thank you again. It truly means a lot. And what do you want to say to our subscribers at the end of our interview?
Thank you for having me. When I've competed at international events, there's always been Ukrainian athletes there, and I have had many people from Ukraine cheer me on, and it would be amazing to have more people contact for advice or any questions they have regarding training. I would love to be more of a mentor to future athletes and share my experiences and advice on training, mindset, food, anything like this, and to know that regardless of what's happening, that it's all in the mind and they can push through. And I look forward to chatting to any of them when they contact me.
Bye and good luck.
Thank you.